Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Spawn Daily. I'm your host, Jace. Gonna do things a little bit differently today. Now, originally, what we were planning on doing was reading the whole entirety of the main Spawn series. But what I've discovered as we're approaching issue 50 now is there's a lot of things that happen in other titles, other Spawn spin-offs, one-shots, miniseries, what have you, that really affect the main story. And it was especially obvious when Rocky and I had talked about how Spawn's face was split in half and he had to have it sewed up by this dirty shoelace, and that shoelace has remained, for years, for like 2 years worth of issues, always assuming that it's because he got shot in the forehead, which never made sense that it would have split his face down the middle. But then I took a look at a reading order and I discovered that, hey, in the Spawn Batman team up, Spawn buries a batarang right down the middle of, or Batman rather, buries a batarang right down the middle of Spawn's face. And that has everything to do with why his face has been split in half for so long. And so I started thinking about, well, maybe we should think about looping in some of these other areas instead of just doing, the main series. But the problem is there's a lot. There's a whole lot. And if we do that, it's going to take us past the 1 year. And I definitely want to end, I want to get up to the end of I want to get up to when Spawn Universe was released. The Spawn Universe one-shot that McFarlane feels launches his kind of connected Spawn universe. So, like I said, I went looking for some reading orders. I found one by a guy named Blake Whitlow. It's by far the best one out there. I looked at several of them. I'm going to put a link to the show notes for the Google Doc where you can go check it out yourself. And I am going to loop in. I'm going to go back. We're going to pause the regular issues for now. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to fill in a lot of the stuff that happened already. Like we're going to go check out the Youngblood issues where Chapel died. We're going to go check out the Violator miniseries, like we talked about possibly doing, the Angela miniseries. So we're going to check out a couple of those. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go issue by issue with those. I'm going to combine them together. Like I'll just do one episode on the Violator miniseries, one episode on the Angela miniseries, and eventually I'll probably do those. Like those are going to be separate. They're going to be their own podcast. But eventually I'm hoping to get to the point where if I put out one of those episodes that's not necessarily the main Spawn series, I'll still put out a Spawn episode that day also. I don't have it set up that way quite yet. I have it set up where everything ends with that Spawn universe on New Year's New Year's Eve. But a lot of the other ones are mashed together. So we'll see how it all plays out. I don't know that I'll always put out another episode of Spawn, because it takes a lot of time. Honestly, what takes the most time is going in and removing all the dialogue, because we do want you guys to buy these books, right? I don't want to just, talk about them and give my thoughts, but also put every single page up on the screen on YouTube like some people do, because that's how you get your stuff taken down if somebody files a copyright claim, because technically you don't have to go by the book if I'm showing you every single page and you can read every single word. So that's what actually takes the longest, just a little behind the scenes. So anyway, like I said, thanks to Blake Whitlow for the incredible reading order. I will put it in the show notes. You'll be able to check it out. So that being said, the books we're going to talk about today, again, I'm going to double up, and these issues, according to the reading order, take place. These are the first issues that aren't like the regular Spawn series, right? These issues take place pretty early on, and they have a lot to do with Overt-Kill, who definitely showed up pretty early in Spawn. He debuted in issue number 6. So I already talked about Spawn Batman. That was probably the first non-Spawn, although it's still Spawn. But anyway, so that happened after issue 20, and then technically before the hunt starts with issue 21. We've got 23 and 24 here, and you'll see how they tie in, although it does take a little bit of like reading between the lines, I think, and you'll see what I mean as we get there. So yeah, basically, if I were to do the reading order starting over, we would cover issues 1 through 20, and then we'd do Spawn Batman like I did the other day, and then we'd jump to these two, Curse of Spawn 23 and Curse of Spawn 24. So those are the books I'm going to talk about in this particular issue, or episode rather. So let me go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see. Fabulous cover there from Dwayne Turner. And you see, the little kind of a glowing emblem or glowing chess piece, I guess you'd say, or maybe it's his eyepiece from Overt-Kill. That's probably what it is. And turning to the first page, we see the credits here. It's written by Alan McElroy. Pencils are by Dwayne Turner. He was pretty popular back in the 90s. I think he kind of disappeared. I don't know what happened to him, but he's a very talented artist and uses very, very fine lines. We've got inks by Chance Wolfe, Todd McFarlane, with special thanks to Jason Gardner and Jonathan Glapion. Tom Orzechowski does the letters, Todd Broeker and Mark Nicholas on the colors. So it starts off and we're told that we're in Greenland. Again, you see some beautiful line work. There's some Arctic wolves. There's a big giant moose. There's some guy on a snowmobile. He's talking about time, flesh, and shadows, and he pulls up next to this giant steel door that raises up, and we get our first look at him, and he like, when I first saw this, I'm like, is this dude like a Cro-Magnon or like partially like ape or something? Because that's the way Dwayne Turner draws him, right? Like he's got kind of the bushy eyebrows, that real prominent brow, definitely has that rounded bottom jaw sort of thing, where like his top jaw is long, extends out further than his bottom jaw. But we're told that his name is Dr. Alan Hessman, and he's a genius, but also a monster. And that's also why I thought, well, is this guy something more than human? But you find out that's not necessarily the case. And I don't know, it's just that one drawing, because some of the other renderings of him don't look that simian, I guess, that ape-like. But anyway, on the following page, you can see Overt-Kill hanging there from the ceiling, cybernetics, and you can see some of the flesh and whatnot. We're told he's a monster because he's lied, he's cheated, he's stolen, he's killed, and it's how it has to be because there aren't any choices. Love makes you do exceptional things. So like, wait, love? What the heck is going on with this guy? So he, as a way of exposition, which I guess it's an interesting way to do it and a way that works for McElroy so that he can tell us without it seeming really hokey. This Dr. Hessman is making a recording of what he's doing. So he says it's day 463 and he's finishing up the final biomimetics, and he can't help wondering if he's doing the right thing, and he's tired and he's missing things that he ordinarily wouldn't miss. But he's like, if this tape survives me, you'll understand and you'll forgive me, right? We have no idea what this guy's up to, right? It's like he says, I've helped people as a doctor and as a surgeon, limb repair, and that was his expertise and why he went into robotics. But none of that could save his father. We're told that his father was a very good man, and after his mother was killed by a drunk driver, him and his father were very close. Went to baseball games and museums, and then he contracted ALS. His dad had Lou Gehrig's disease, and his body kind of wasted away. And this doctor, he was already on his way, this Hessman was already on his way to becoming a doctor, and he was a resident at the time, and he really dedicated himself to the medical profession, hoping to find a way to rebuild his father's body, come up with new techniques, and he learned all this stuff. But the technology wasn't at the level it needed to be at that time to save his dad. So he buried his father on New Year's Day, and he basically crawled into the bottom of a bottle. He was traveling around the world and just drinking and, pretty much lost when he was in Cairo, and this woman named Christina found him drinking in a back alley dive bar. And this woman told him that he had a brother that he knew nothing about. And so basically this woman, Christina, had spent time with his father in Italy a year before his father met his mother. And then his dad returned to the U.S., and Christina never told him, didn't know how to find him. So his father, Dr. Hessman's father, didn't even know that he had this other son, that this Dr. Hessman has an older brother. And so they went looking for him because Christina had lost touch with him as well. And what they found was that his brother had had a very hard life, kind of grew up on the streets and fell in with the wrong crowd, and eventually he became a killer. He was a hired hitman for the Sicilian mob. He worked for a guy named Luciano Bartino, and he was their like the #1 hitman. And on the day that this Dr. Hessman is going to meet his brother, he sees him across the piazza in Naples, and he's walking towards him, and it's actually an ambush. And these members of a rival gang gun down his brother right in front of him. Like, this poor guy couldn't save his father, even though he's brilliant, he's a genius, the technology wasn't there to save his father. He's lost for years in the bottom of a bottle, finds out he has a younger brother, or an older brother rather, finally tracks him down. The moment he tracks him down, he gets gunned down. I mean, a little coincidental, but pretty brutal. And so he goes to the mob boss who this guy had worked for, and he says, Don Martino, I'm the younger brother of your hitman, Nicholas Roca, and I can give him back to you. And this Don is like, what do I care? I got a bunch of hitmen. Why? I go through them like a shark goes through teeth. Why do you want me to give you money to bring this guy back? Like, I'm not going to waste the time. And Dr. Hessman, he goes, I know robotics, right? I'm world renowned, and I can make this guy your ultimate hitman. He'll literally be a killing machine. And there's another guy there in the room with Bartino, and it turns out it's Don Vito Gravano, who eventually goes to New York and becomes a thorn in the side of Spawn. And so this guy agrees. Don Bartino agrees. He says, okay, let me give you the money. This better be one heck of a killer. And so using the technology that he developed, that wasn't ready in time to save his father, this Dr. Hessman turns his brother into Overt-Kill. But at least he had his brother, at least he had him back, and they got to spend time together. They played chess. At times when his brother wasn't out on assignment, Overt-Kill wasn't out on assignment, he could just be in his like normal identity, I guess you'd say, of Nicholas, the older brother of Dr. Hessman, and they'd play chess and they'd talk. And Hessman is just so happy to have family back, right? And then the scene shifts and we see him starting to put Overt-Kill back together, because remember, the last time we saw Overt-Kill, Spawn had destroyed him with all that high-tech weaponry that he stole from that army warehouse that eventually caused so many problems for Terry Fitzgerald. So once that happened, when Overt-Kill had been loaned to Don Vito Gravano in New York, and then he got destroyed, Gravano reached out to Dr. Hessman and said, hey, Doc, it's about Overt-Kill. We got a problem. And again, family means everything to Dr. Hessman. So of course he went running, and we get a page here of him crawling around on his hands and knees in the alley, looking for every little piece of his brother so he can bring him back. So that's what he's been doing in this lab in Greenland. So he'll be bigger, he'll be better, he'll be faster. So we get a couple of pages of him talking about pouring his heart and soul into bringing his brother back. And, he'll be bigger and more capable than ever before. And so once he finally has them rebuilt and he he must have had some kind of backup of his brain or whatever. And he activates him, and he's sitting there talking to him saying, I won't lose you again. No more killing for hire. No more working for madmen. We're just going to, go hide out and be free. And we're retired. And he says, welcome back, Nicholas. And his brother, who, I don't know, maybe Dr. Hessman should have realized this. It's really sort of tragic. His brother's he's not all there yet. He's still kind of amped up from the last thing he remembered being the fight and whatnot or whatever. So he sees, unfortunately, he sees his brother, Nicholas sees his brother, or Overt-Kill sees his brother, Dr. Hessman, as just an enemy. And he reaches out and grabs his head and just literally pops and breaks it and exclaims, war. And we're told that Overt-Kill is dead, meet Overt-War, and it's to be continued. So he's no longer even Overt-Kill anymore, which, again, I know it doesn't make complete sense because we saw him return later in the issues of Spawn, and he was still called Overt-Kill. But we'll get to that. I can kind of explain it if you don't think about it too much. But it's still really, really tragic, and it does explain why when we saw Overt-Kill at the end of issue 20, why he was, or at the end of issue 7 rather, why he was so messed up. And then when we see him again in the hands of the scientist that's working for Vito Gravano, he's in much better shape. Like he's almost all put back together already. He's in nowhere near the damage that he had when Spawn basically blew him into a million pieces. So it's a cool story to get Overt-Kill's origin. It's tragic in a way, but for me, where this issue really, really shines is the artwork by Dwayne Turner. This artwork is just stunning in detail. I love the panel layouts on the pages. The backgrounds can be kind of light at times, but I don't mind that because there's so much detail in the foreground. Just look at the hands, the skin, the technology, the equipment. Every single person in here, every time he renders a main character, they're just exquisitely detailed. And the sense of storytelling, the coloring, how everything was sort of muted, a lot of grays and blacks, and the green of Overt-Kill isn't real bright either. Even the reds are more of a darker red. It's not a real bright red. So the colors here are outstanding as well. So I really, really love the story. I was glad that we got the origin of Overt-Kill. And it continues into issue 24, sort of, because it says to be continued. Issue 24 takes a different tack with a different artist, and it sort of ties in, but not necessarily in the way that you might think. But again, it ends up working, I think, really, really well. So let's go ahead and take a look at issue number 24. Again, really cool cover from Dwayne Turner. We see Overt-War, I guess we'll call him there. Let's go ahead and open it up, and we'll take a look at the credit. So again, written by Alan McElroy. This time the pencils are by Clayton Crain, which is pretty interesting. Inks by Chance Wolfe and Todd McFarlane. Special thanks to Jason Gardner. Is that? Yeah, Jason Gardner. Sorry, I can't. It's not quite so small. Yeah, Jason Gardner. Anyway, Tom Orzechowski on letters. The same Todd Broeker and Mark Nicholas on the color. So the reason I kind of pause there with Clayton Crain is because if you're familiar at all with any of Clayton Crain's work, from the past, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, you'll know him as a digital painter. He doesn't really do pencils anymore. So that's why it's so interesting to me to see that he's the penciler. I don't know before this that I'd ever seen his pencils. I must have at some point. But yeah, I was blown away by these pencils. And if you're not going to have Dwayne Turner, who, like we said last issue, has a ton of detail, then why not have Clayton Crain, who also gives us a ton of detail. Very similar style, actually, in terms of penciling. I mean, when Clayton does his digital painting, that's a totally different animal. And it's still really fantastic and beautiful, but it doesn't have the level of detail just because he can't, necessarily get it with kind of the digital airbrush style that he has now. But anyway, as the story starts, we're told we're at UL-21. It's a government-run hard security facility deep within the dark, sun-blistered heart of the Nevada desert. So it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's part of over 900,000 acres owned by the U.S. government, and it hides, among other things, Area 51. So it's basically the most secure prison in the world, crowning achievement of penology, the most advanced cage ever designed by man, we're told, and it's all to hold this one guy. He's the only prisoner there, and he's the one who's narrating the story. And he talks about the reinforced walls and the razor wire and the electrified doors, and how they're watching his every move. And we see that he's shackled to the walls at all times. He's got a camera on him. He's naked. He's stripped. He gets no comfort. That's how afraid they are of him. And he says that he once used a pair of nail clippings that led to his escape. I don't know how that is possible. Like at first, when I read it, I was like, oh, nail clippers. But no, not nail clippers, like nail clippings. So they must go in and clip his nails like every couple days and take the nails with them. Like it doesn't seem, I don't know, but I mean, it's kind of funny and over the top, but at the same time, when you get into the story and you read how brutal this guy is, you start to believe, well, maybe he could use a couple nail clippings to escape. I mean, the guy he's something else. And he's got, really cool looking American flag tattoo on his back. And he's narrating. He says, "My name is Jonathan Abel Unger, the man they call Pandemic," which that name obviously takes on a little bit of a different meaning, maybe a negative connotation with everything we've been going through in the world the past couple of years, but it's still a great name. Like when McFarlane or when McElroy chose it for this guy, you kind of understand. I mean, he is a brutal killer and can definitely take out plenty of people, just like a pandemic. So I don't know. It's a cool name. Anyway, then we see him and he's doing some pull-ups and he's talking about how if you're going to survive, you have to have a goal. And he talks about setting his emotions aside years ago, and they keep him near starvation, but it's okay. He doesn't really need food. He doesn't really need sleep. He's developed this thing in his mind where he's built a fortress there, and that's where he really lives. It's inside his mind, and he's very strong mentally. He'll never run out of room. He'll always be free in his mind. He says he thinks a truly focused mind can pull the moon down from the sky. He says, my father told me that. It's one of my earliest memories. So he does get a little bit of exercise every day. He gets to go for 10 minutes and walk in this circle, and he's told if he deviates from the circle, there will be a lethal response. And he's remembering back to his childhood when he used to celebrate the 4th of July with his parents and whatnot. And even when he's walking in the circle, there's guards above him that are training laser rifles, rifles with laser scopes on them. That's how dangerous this guy is. And so he's talking about how growing up, he was very patriotic. That's why he mentions the 4th of July, and he wanted to be service to his country. So he joined the Navy, and he quickly rose to the ranks. He became a captain of his own battleship, and he served many, many proud years. And being out there and defending the freedoms of the country made coming home that much sweeter, and it gave him a sense of purpose. And then he's taken back to his cell, and the reminiscing is interrupted, and we see the glop of the food that he's given. It says it stinks of their fear, but that alone is his nourishment. So he talks about going to the VA hospital to see some of his former commanders, and that really opened his eyes to how terrible the government treated the people that were giving their lives, that were sacrificing, that were, serving their country. And he says that he learned that his government is not our government, that there was something greater behind it, pulling the strings. The government was sick. He's talking about like deep state stuff here. So he kind of gave into some paranoia. He said there was something heinous infecting our country. And when I went to my superiors at the Navy to confront them, spoke to the Secretary of Navy, they shouted me down at every turn. Some of it's paranoia, some of it's probably true. There's always black bag stuff and backwater dealings and this and that. And for somebody as idealistic as the guy who would become penance, you can see how, anything that's not, taking care of the soldiers and not by the book and not completely according to the law, that he would turn against that. And so he said he became frantic, and he started looking for clues, and he felt that Kennedy's murder was when everything started. And we all know about all the crazy conspiracy theories around JFK's murder. And eventually he got in to see the president. But, at that point, everybody's thinking he's crazy. And so in order to shut him up, some of those black bag people, probably Jason Wynn, right, and his people, they decided to take him out, basically. And not just him, but his family, too. So they killed his parents, which is just horrible. You can see there, they burned his parents alive. They killed his mom, they killed his parents, obviously. They killed his wife. And you can see there when it shows his wife in the car, you can see the regularly colored panels. And then you can see the reddish panels, which are the flashbacks, which I love the coloring in this book. It's so fantastic. But you can see above that scene, that's Overt-Kill. That's Overt-Kill that they sent to wipe out his family. So, and then they tortured him, and I don't know why they didn't kill him. But here's why. I do remember now. They said, yeah, before they caught me, I took what I knew, the terrible truth, and I made arrangements so that if I died, if anything happened to me, the truth would come out. And as long as I'm alive, their secret's safe. So they just drugged me and tortured me and tried to get me to tell them, the plan, what I had set up, where I'd hidden the information, but I wouldn't tell them. Nothing would break me. Instead, all this pain, all it did was make me stronger. So they ended up, locking me away and throwing away the key. But they forgot one thing, that now they'd taken everything from me, and there's nothing more dangerous than a man who has nothing to lose. So, of course, I escaped. And I tried to, find the truth and expose it. And I didn't feel bad for anybody that I had killed, because in his mind, this is what he's saying. He's like, I didn't feel remorse because I was curing a disease by killing people that were a part of this disease system. But eventually they caught me and overwhelmed me because they have so many more men than me. But I escaped and I killed more people. And every time I killed somebody, in their dying eyes, I saw my parents and my wife and all my dreams dying. That's what they'd done to me. But eventually they caught me again. And I was held for almost 4 months this time. But then I blew that place up and escaped and killed more people. And so eventually they built this prison, the UL-21, the strongest one. And I've been here for almost a year. But I'm patient, and they're afraid, and I know I'll find a way to escape. And on my file, they've codenamed me Pandemic, because what I know can destroy the entire world that they've built, just like a pandemic. So again, really, really cool name, really cool flashback, great art, great coloring. And you would think that these people would know better, right? How dangerous this Jonathan Unger is. But they don't. They don't know better. And they make a really, really stupid mistake. So he gets a visit from some black bag people, and they say, we can make your life better. How would you like to take out the guy who killed your parents and your fiance? I guess it wasn't his wife, it was his fiance. Um, and they say, oh, by the way, did you know your fiance was 5 months pregnant? Who knows? Probably not even true, right? These guys are just scummy government black bag people that work for Jason Wynn. And they show him some footage. They show him some footage of Overt-Kill attacking his fiance's car. So basically what this shows is that, okay, sometime between the end of last issue and the beginning of this issue, Overt-Kill, who's now Overt-War, who was rebuilt by his brother, is out there, and the government doesn't have control of him anymore. And even though they had hired him at one point to take out Unger's parents and fiance, and now they want him brought back in under the fold. So they ask Unger, hey, you willing to do this? And so he says, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And they take all these precautions. You can see there how they have them all tied up, all these steel cables, and they put this mask on them, and they've got them chained up in this like rectangular cage, and they load him in the back of a plane, and they're going to take him and basically drop him right on top of Overt-Kill. And he looks pretty cool here with all caged up, kind of like Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, but dialed up to 11 in a lot of ways. And so he's there, and he's thinking, I'm only one man, but I can imagine the hopes and dreams of all men and life and liberty. And I put all the pain and the physical and the mental images of my parents out of my mind. I think of my fiance and her smile and everything that she was and what she could have made and the life we could have made together. And I think of what she would have wanted. And all I want to do is remove the stains and the lies and the deceit that have infected this country. I've spent years murdering people trying to get to the truth, but maybe the truth is not something we can find. Maybe things aren't as black and white. So what's he going to do? That's the question. Is he going to actually do what they tell him? I don't know why they would ever think so. So they fly him to New York. We see Overt-Kill there, Overt-War, and he's searching for Spawn. That's the memory he has. Spawn, kill, and he's the police and National Guard have been dispatched, and they've created they've cordoned off an area, and there's a big patch of Manhattan that's lying in ruins, and they drop this guy, right? My flying jail dips low over the city, and they just drop him out the back. They drop the package, and at least they give him a parachute, right? And so his first sight as a free man is this burning hell rushing up to meet him, we're told. So he lands, he takes off some of the shackles he has on, he arms himself, he looks pretty cool. I mean, he looked cool before, but now he looks even cooler that he has this armor rather. And he's like, I can't allow myself to think too much of the freedom that I have because my task is too great, he says. He's got to focus on the task. This is the beast that killed my parents, the monster that slaughtered my fiance. He's an instrument of, he's a dark machine. He's a death dealer like me. So what's he going to do? What's Unger going to do? So he actually approaches Overt-War, and he's thinking of his dad and his mom and his fiance, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to take this guy out with one shot. And if I fire at him, he's going to keep coming. If I was smart, I would run. But the people that sent me know that I would never run because I'm not really scared of anything. And he hears Overt-Kill over and over saying, kill Spawn, kill Spawn, kill Spawn. So it gets him thinking. He's like, you want Spawn? And Overt-Kill, to his credit, Overt-War, actually, hears this, and he doesn't just turn on Unger and just attack him. Like, yeah, Spawn, I want Spawn. He's the one that did this to me. He's the one that made me kill my brother. So obviously, Overt-War has regained some of his memories. I think when he woke up, it was traumatic. When he got rebuilt by his brother, it was traumatic, and he lashed out and he killed his brother. But now he's come back to himself a little bit. We saw before that he wasn't some mindless machine, some mindless cyborg, but he definitely wants Spawn. So when Unger says, well, I know where Spawn is, Overt-War's like, where? Tell me. Like, he wants to know. That's all he's focused on. He's now lost the only thing that mattered to him. And Unger says, oh, he's in this high security government prison in central Nevada. And so what we see actually happen is that Overt-Kill goes to LU-21. And he destroys the prison. He destroys the prison that was built to keep Unger shackled. Unger saw this as his way to escape. He never planned on taking out Overt-War. And we're told on this last page here, he says, I love my country. I love America. I'm going to get it back. Unger hasn't given up hope that he can expose the secrets, that he can kill enough people to root out the corruption. And he says, this man or machine or monster, or whoever this guy is that murdered my parents and my fiance, he isn't to blame. He's just a weapon. It was the guys that hired him and sent him out. Those are the ones. Those are the people that I want. And so it's great to watch him destroy this prison, because I know I'll never be caught again. I will become what they named me, they codenamed me. I'll become a pandemic, and I'm dedicating myself to the promise that I'm going to bring this dark world to its knees. So pretty cool. I mean, you sort of think when the story starts off, and even when the offer is made, that it's going to be this epic battle between Unger and Overt-Kill. But Unger's smarter than that. Like, he's a fantastic character. Obviously he's paranoid and has some mental issues, right? That he thinks killing is the answer, but you sort of can't blame him. In a way, the black bag, the shadier aspects of the government are what made Unger who he is. I mean, you almost think that it's all going to come back to Jason Wynn at some point. And I don't even know if this pandemic shows up in any more issues with Spawn. I sure hope he does, because he's a fascinating character. And like I said, I love the armor. I love the look of him. I mean, he looked cool enough before when he was just all ripped, from working out all the time. What else did he have to do? But just a really cool story. I love the aspect of how unexpected it is. Unger totally flips the script on the people. Again, I question if he was that dangerous that you had to build him his own prison, UL-21. Why would you send him after Overt-Kill? Overt-War. Why? It doesn't make any sense. And sure enough, he does turn the table. So I just thought it was fantastic. And again, just like last issue, the detail in the art, like I was saying at the top, with Clayton Crain giving us his pencils instead of his paint, it's like, I want more of this. Don't get me wrong. I love the airbrush style, the slickness, the beauty, especially the colors of when we get the airbrush style from Clayton Crain. But this is stunning. Like, again, I don't know that I'd seen his pencils before. Like, just the detail, how often he does close-ups. He zooms in on eyes a lot. We see reflections. The anatomy, the storytelling, transitions from panel to panel. Again, these flashback pages where everything is in a kind of a red filter. Just fantastic. I just thought this was so good. So again, even though it's not the regular Spawn series, after checking out Batman Spawn, and for the reasons that I mentioned about how important it was, in terms of we didn't know why Spawn's face was split in half, even though we kind of thought, oh, okay, well, he did get shot in the forehead. But between that and then how good this is, I'm like, why don't I want to cover more of this? We're still going to get to the end, and you're more than welcome to skip over, the non-Spawn stuff if you want. I'm still going to try to do a Spawn, regular Spawn series issue every day. Like I said, there may be days where I don't, when I've got to cover, like, because some of the stuff, like let's say it's a story arc of Sam and Twitch, and it's 6 issues, right? I've got to read all 6 issues. I've got to remove all the words from 6 issues. That's going to take a lot of time. I may not have time to do a Spawn issue also. And I'm also always going to do just 1 issue per episode when it's the actual Spawn series. This other stuff I can consolidate, like this one, and it can be kind of 2 issues in one. Plus, the other thing about this art, both Dwayne Turner in Curse of Spawn 23 and Clayton Crain in Curse of Spawn 24, is the panels are a little bigger than you would normally see. Kind of like McFarlane. I mean, that's generally true with Todd, to a lesser extent, Greg Capullo. But when you have this much detail, you're gonna go with bigger panels to show some of that detail off. And so I think a lot of these other miniseries and whatnot, they'll be a little bit of a quicker read. At least that's what I'm hoping, so I can keep my sanity. But anyway, I loved these. I thought these were great. And Curse of Spawn is available on Comixology, so you can go and get it there. And again, like the reading order that Bradley Whitlow put together, or Blake Whitlow. I know why I always want to call him Bradley. Blake Whitlow, the reading order he put together is just, it's so good. It's so good. It's not overly complicated. Again, there's a link in the show notes to the Google Doc if you want to see what's coming up next. So I'm going to, like I said, backfill and hopefully cover all of the non-main Spawn series stuff that goes before issue 50, and then I will resume the regular Spawn episodes with 50, and then we'll go from there, and we'll see how it goes. And if you guys hate this and you're like, no, I don't care about any Curse of Spawn or any Angela or Violator or Sam and Twitch or any of that stuff, I don't care if parts of the story don't make sense, I just want the main Spawn series, then tell me, and maybe I won't do this. Maybe I'll do this as a side project later on or something like that, or I'll just read them for myself so that I have the context that they bring. So again, let me know what you think if you hate this idea, but the schedule I have should still have everything done. The main Spawn series should still be done by the end of the year, up to 317 or 318, I think it is, which is right before Spawn Universe. Spawn Universe will be the last thing that we talk about on New Year's Eve, unless I get even further ahead and we cover more stuff. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, these are so worth your time. The art is fantastic. I thought the stories in both were great. I don't even know if I could choose one over the other as being really cool, because the one with the Overt-Kill's brother, this Dr. Hessman, that was tragic. Yeah, he was a bad guy. He turned his brother into the ultimate killing machine, but his brother was dead, and he did, it was explained really well about the context. You could understand having lost his mother to a drunk driver. That's a tragedy. He watches his dad waste away from ALS, and he's a doctor and a roboticist, and he has the knowledge to save him, but the technology's not there yet. You can completely understand. He's a sympathetic character, and then he finally gets his brother back, resurrects him for the second time, and his brother reaches out and pops his head like a water balloon. Like brutal stuff. So the other aspect of this that I said I would mention is, so the next time that we see Overt-Kill, I think it's like around issue 23 or 24. Like I said, he's in a laboratory in New York, and he's being rebuilt by the scientist that Vito Gravano had hired, and he was in pretty good shape. He wasn't blown to bits like he was at the end of issue 7, or like we saw in Curse of the Spawn 23 when Dr. Hessman, his brother's crawling around on his hands and knees in the alley, picking up every little bit of him, right? I didn't think that much of it at the time, that he had been rebuilt by Gravano's guy. How that, just figure, well, off panel, must have taken a long time to rebuild him. But this is the last time we see Overt-War, Overt-Kill, whatever, and then he shows up over there. So what I'm postulating, what I'm thinking, the way I'm making it make sense in my head is, okay, so Unger, tricks Overt-Kill into going and destroying the prison that he had been imprisoned in, UL-21. And in the process of destroying this prison, we know there's a lot of the government military forces around. Maybe part of the prison collapses on them. Maybe some armed forces show up or what have you. But in some way, while destroying this prison, UL-21, Overt-Kill is damaged to the point that he's deactivated. He's not turned on. He's not conscious. He's not aware. Whatever you want to say it. He's damaged some, and at that point, that's when Gravano gets a hold of him somehow. Maybe Gravano has contacts in the military or what have you, and he finds out, hey, this guy that you hired, Overt-Kill, he's been put back together, but he is damaged somewhat, and he's being, stored here or wherever. And that's where Gravano gets him with, and then takes him to his scientist, and his scientist can repair him because he's not damaged to the point that he was damaged when Spawn blew them all to hell and there was practically nothing left. That makes a lot of sense when you think of it like that, because the way that Overt-Kill looked at the end of issue 7, and then the way he looks when he shows up with Gravano's scientist, and Gravano's just a mob guy, he shouldn't have access to like state-of-the-art technology or what have you, but maybe he could repair him from, more minor damage that Overt-Kill might have sustained while destroying this prison, or when the armed forces come to attack him because he destroyed this prison. So that's the way I'm making it make sense in my head. If you know differently, please reach out, let me know. I'd be really curious, but I kind of like it. I like that we got Overt-Kill's origin. I loved meeting this new guy, Pandemic. I think it makes sense what I just explained about the timeline for Overt-Kill. And at the end of the day, these 2 issues are worth it just for the art, just for the pencil work of these 2 incredible artists, Dwayne Turner and Clayton Crain. So anyway, that's going to do it for the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know either in the comments or on social media or whatever if you hate this idea of me covering more of the tangential stuff for Spawn to celebrate this 30th anniversary of him. So we want to thank everybody for listening. As always, we couldn't do it without you. Wouldn't do it if you weren't there listening. So keep listening. Thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you next time.